President, please be seated. The court is back in session and the floor is given to the defense team for Mr. Kilsampon, said President. Rather, to defense team for Mr. Nguyen first. You may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Your Honours, Counsel. Good afternoon again, Madam Civil Party. I have a few more questions to ask to you. Before the lunch break, we spoke a bit about the sleeping quarter on the premises of the Tapang Pagoda, and that the women of your unit were sleeping there at the time. Was this also the case for the 30 men? In other words, did all of the people from your village sleep at the premises of the Tapang Pagoda?
Answer. There was a separate hall, and the distance from one hall to another was about 30 meters. There was separate hall for female and male workers, and the hall for female worker was situated on the right side of the temple in the pagoda, and for the female worker, for the male workers, they slept in a hall at the left-hand side of the temple.
And after having slept in the night, did all 80 people, men and women, then leave the premises of the Tapang Pagoda and from there walk to your workplace at the 1st January Dam worksite? Is that correct?
Witness, I could not get your question. Could you ask me again?
Did both men and women from your village, after they had woken up after their sleep, did you all go together, the 80 of you, from the pagoda to the worksite at the dam?
Answer. The whistle was blown at 4 a.m. for us to get dressed and get ready. And another whistle was blown for the second time to signal to everyone to leave for work sites. While we were walking, some of the workers nodded off, some fell down, and the unit chief would warn those workers who fell down or who nodded off, and everyone was following one after another. I myself fell down on the ground at one time because I was sleepy. On some occasion, other workers would. On one occasion, some workers fell down to the ground, and on another occasion, some other would fall down on the ground because it was 4 a.m. in the morning and everyone was so sleepy. We had to go to work even during that period. It was the time that we could have a good sleep.
Earlier today and this morning, you said that you estimated the distance between the Tapang Pagoda and the worksite at the dam around 3 kilometers. Can you tell the trial chamber why you estimated the distance 3 kilometers?
Answer. It was my rough estimate since I used to be educated in school, and my rough estimate perhaps sometimes is not really correct, but I believe that it was about that distance.
And after the whole group of 80 people had arrived after walking at the work site, did you then start working at the same time as all the other workers from all the other villages at the dam?
Answer. That is true. When we reached our workplace, we started working. There were earth carrier baskets, so everyone was on work. No one was standing idle. We knew our own assignment to do. Some who were assigned to dig the earth, they would dig it anyway. And some people were so tired, and they would hide the baskets somewhere so that they could take a little bit rest. We were so tired, so we pretended that our baskets got lost, but we had to be careful so that no one stole our baskets. And if we were strong enough, we would bring our tools or material back to the pagoda and put at the right places. So it took us very long to travel from our workplace back to the pagoda. We would reach the pagoda at 10 p.m. and we were so tired. After we reached the pagoda, we would take a bath and went to sleep. Actually, we could not go to sleep anyway. We had to prepare our own set of clothes for tomorrow work. So as I said, the first whistle was blown so that everyone woke up, and for the second whistle blowing, we had to travel and go to work.
Madam Witness, I have Madam Civil Party, I have a few questions. So, if you could be a little shorter in your answer, I would very much appreciate that. I'm still at the morning. In relation to your work, when you arrived, the 80 people or so from your group at the dam site, did you then, at the same time, you started working at the same time as all other groups? So when you heard a bell at the work site, you then joined the forces of all the other villages. Is that correct?
Answer. No one was late at work. My group stayed a bit far away from the work site, so we had to be hurried and went to work. And some workers, they leave and stay close to the work site, so they perhaps could start work earlier than us. My unit and group chief was very careful to advise us to go to work on time because we stay far away from the work site compared to others.
But would it be fair to say, again, that the moment that you actually started working at the dam was around the same time as all other workers from other villages started working? Is that correct?
Answer. As I stated earlier, sometimes we would arrive earlier than other workers did. Normally, as for us, we live in a far place from the work site, so we would arrive at the work site earlier than others.
Madam Civil Party, before you, 3 other witnesses have testified as to working conditions and working times, etc., at the dam site. And one of the witnesses has given testimony that everybody started working at the dam site at around the same time, at around 7 o'clock in the morning. Is that a correct statement from this witness?
Answer. No, it's not correct. As I said, I stay in a far place from the work site, so my group would arrive earlier than others. And if they started work at 7 a.m., that's the day was already broke. So, as I stated, we started our work earlier than the time mentioned.
But I understood this morning, and maybe I'm wrong, that the work from your group was done in a segment next to groups from other villages, that you were in fact working on a part of the dam, a part of the ground that was adjacent to groups of other villages. Or did I not get that right?
Answer. Yes, our segment that we were working on were close to each other. We have the segment of land to work on for Cholao, for Thmei, for Barai. I do not recall them all. We from Barai Songkat had to wake up all together and go to work.
Madam Civil Party, I apologize to interrupt you, but maybe it would be more helpful if I read to you an excerpt from this particular witness statement, and then ask you if it is correct, yes or no. Mr. President, that is E3/403, WRI of Mr. Soka, Big Soka, ERN English 00403006, Khmer ERN 00389524, and French 00422240. So, Madam Witness, the question to this witness is as follows, and I read: how did they define the working hours? How did they divide the work? And this particular witness answers as follows. From 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. in the afternoon, from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. During the working hours, they were allowed to have a 15-minute break. At night, the work started from 6:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. The dam construction was divided into sectors, districts, groups and individuals. Each person dug 2 cubic meters a day and carried to build the dikes. If one finished digging and carrying early, he could take a rest. Is this testimony accurate? Is this how it was in your group of 80 people as well?
Answer. I would like to know where this individual was living, in which Sangkat or commune was he or she living. It was not the same situation as where I was living. I started work at 5 a.m. and I had to work until 11 a.m. After that time, we had breakfast and we had to resume our work in the afternoon until 5 p.m. and we had a night shift as well to work.
But is it at least correct in your memory that you had a 3 hours break between 11 and 2 in order to have lunch?
For my place, we had to resume work at 1 p.m., not 2 p.m.
So where you were working, you had a 2-hour lunch break. Is that correct?
Answer. Yes.
And is it correct that in the morning people within the group of 80 were assigned to carry with them food such as rice, vegetables, fish, etc.? Was that taken in the morning from the pagoda to the work site?
Answer. For food, the cook was responsible for our food, and the food was ready at 10 a.m. in the morning, and it was carried to our place by someone. The food was required to be at our work site 15 or 10 minutes before the break time. No one could bring along their own food supplies.
So the lunch that you were eating at around 11 was the food that had been taken earlier in the morning from the pagoda to the work site. Is that correct?
Answer. Yes. That is correct. We had to have our meal at our work site. On some occasions, we did not have our field.
But was it Anne that you spoke about earlier this morning, that she was also in charge of making sure that all 80 people from your village in your unit had enough to eat?
And answer. The respective village was responsible for its own food for workers. The village would supply food to its own worker, and when we workers at the work site ran out of food, we would send information to the village. And every 10 days there would be pork and meat to eat, because we did not have such delicious meal every day. Some of them fell sick and got dysentery on the day that we had special meal. We were accused and we were reprimanded because we were provided with good food to eat, and we had dysentery and illness. So on some occasion, people got dysentery because of the meal that we had. The medics would come to our place and give us the rabbit droppings medicines. So we used that medicines for the treatment, even it was not responding to the illness.
In the morning, when you were working and starting, sometimes at the same time as all the other workers, did you have a 15-minute break after 1 hour and a half, 2 hours?
Answer: there was a break time at 9 or 9:30, a short break. So when we heard the whistle blown, we would sit on the place where we were working. We could not walk to anywhere to take the rest. Some of us would sit and lay against each other, and some would even snoring.
This break of 50 minutes that you said, that you just talked about, did that 50-minute break fall precisely in the middle of the morning session of work? In other words, did that 50-minute break the morning session into two, exactly halfway?
Answer: yes, that is correct.
You said just now that it is your estimate that the pagoda was around 3 kilometers situated from the place that you were working. Is it fair to say that the group took about 45 minutes, if they were slow, around an hour, to walk from the pagoda to the work site?
Answer: I could not tell you how long it takes. But for the distance, I could give you the rough estimate. Once again, I could not give you the description of how long it took from the place where I live to the work site.
If we follow the witness whose testimony I just presented to you, and if we follow testimony from the other two witnesses, working time started at 7. Is it then correct when I say that you left the pagoda in the morning at around 6:15.
President, please hold on. Witness, said the President. You may now proceed, co-prosecutor.
Thank you, Mr. President. If counsel wishes to use other witnesses' testimony, I think he should cite the references. My understanding and recollection is that from the 3 prior witnesses, we had 2 people who were supervisors, perpetrators, if you will, who gave a later start time, and a witness who was a worker like this person who gave a time estimate that was consistent with hers. So I think to avoid this, counsel needs to cite the references rather than characterize the evidence.
I think that is a poorly formulated objection, calling the first 2 witnesses perpetrators. I have no idea on which grounds prosecution is calling these 2 witnesses perpetrators. However, having said that, it's my recollection that the witness number 3 confirmed in greater lines the working hours. Anyway, having said that, I just referred to the statement of this one witness, and I'm now trying to find out whether maybe the witness is wrong in time, and whether in fact her group left the pagoda at around 6. And if she says no, that's not the case, then she can say that. So I think I'm allowed to ask this question.
Counsel, if I understood the prosecution correctly, the problem is not so much the question but the reference. What we have done is accepting references to prior statements as long as everybody obviously agreed, yes, that's what was said. As soon as somebody gets up and says that's not what I remember, obviously you have to give us the reference. I think that's the only issue here.
I think I just quoted from the WRI from Soka, who says that working hours were from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. in the morning. And then calculating around 45 minutes, maximum an hour, walking, then I can put it to this civil party that in fact she didn't wake up at 3 and left at 4, but rather woke up at 5 and left at 6.
The problem is not the question, just give us the reference. Of the
E3/403, English ERN 00403006, Khmer 00389524, and French 00422240. The exact same numbers as I just gave.
If counsel wants to just put the statement of this one witness, that's fine. I think he's already done that. He's already asked her a number of times about the hours given by Pet Soka, who was a senior cadre supervisor at the site. But then he just attempted to represent to the witness that all 3 people agreed with this. That's not my recollection of Ms. Lai Hao's testimony. So if he wants to use all 3 and make representations, he needs to have to cite. Otherwise, he shouldn't be trying to mislead or lead the witness.
I can waste my time and now read our house testimony. I think he confirmed Soka. But let me rephrase and end this discussion, Mr. President, if you allow me. Madam Civil Party, when you left in the morning, did you have, or at the time, did you have a watch? Were you able to look at the clock at what time it was when you left?
Mien.
Answer, yes, I had. Base people had the time to watch. The first whistle blowing was at 3 a.m. or perhaps 4 a.m. Sometimes we overslept. So when the one who was in charge of blowing the whistle overslept, and then we could have a little bit more time to sleep. And for the one who told you that work started at 7 a.m. in the morning, this individual may be a former unit chief or a cadre during that time. He could go to work a little bit late compared to others.
You see, Mr. Prosecutor, what happens to these suggestions. Madam Witness, you just said that the work in the morning ended at 11 and that the morning break was exactly in the middle of the morning session. Now, isn't it true that you started working at 7 with this calculation in mind?
Answer: yes, there was a 15-minute break. But work never started at 7 a.m. It started at 6 a.m. For my group, we had to start work at before 7 a.m. We never started work at 7 a.m. as I stated earlier. And at around 9 or 9:30, we had a 15-minute break. After the break, we had to resume work until 11 a.m. In the afternoon, we started our work at 1, and we had another short break around 3 o'clock. We resumed work after the break in the afternoon until 5 p.m. in the evening. And we work at night as well. We work from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. And after work, we went back to the place at Tropang Chray, where we slept.
Thank you, Madam Witness. I think I heard what I wanted to hear. I would like to move on to the lunch preparation. Were you also in various turns, involved in preparing the food for the lunch break?
There was one time when the cook had to return home as the children were sick. And that day I was unwell and I was allowed to rest, and that was the day that I replaced the cook.
The other time that you were unwell, that you had terrible abdominal pain, and that you requested to rest and not to work. Did you request that to her in the morning before you went to the work site, or was it that you requested this to her during your time at the work site?
Actually, my menstrual cycle started during the night, and then I had to go to work in the morning. And while I was carrying earth, and maybe it's because of the overworked, my period stopped, and that caused me abdominal pain. And my body was trembling, my limbs were trembling, and I could no longer carry earth. and I couldn't eat my meal at the time. I was about to ask the request, but upon seeing my condition, the unit chief instructed another worker to take me back to the sleeping quarter. And she noticed that my face was pale with pain, and she asked me why. And I told her that it's because of my menstrual cycle and it stopped, and that I was trembled with pain. So that was the time that I was allowed to rest for the afternoon session.
And when you made that request to Anne, did Anne immediately agree and said it's no problem, you can go back to the sleeping quarters and rest?
Initially, she was rather hesitated, but upon seeing the trembling condition that I was in, she decided to allow me to rest. And in fact, it was another work colleague who told me that my face was so pale, although I myself felt the tremble throughout my body.
This morning, Madam Civil Party, you spoke about one old man in your group of 80 villagers. An old man who you said had died. Do you remember exactly what happened with this old man? Did he get sick at one point, and did he request then to have medical care? And did he then maybe go somewhere else? What exactly can you tell us about what happened to this old man?
He was not an old man. He was unmarried, and he was about 20 to 21 years old. And he was also a basic person. And he took care of his work, and he always focused on his work. And he overworked until he fell sick. And he didn't have a chance for any hospitalization. In fact, he rested at home for a fortnight and he died. His mother, Ree, had 2 sons, and he was the second son.
So he was staying 14 days in your village before he passed away? Is that correct?
He lived in the same village, and his house was about 6 doors away from mine.
But before he passed away, he was lying sick for about 14 days. Is that my understanding?
Yes, that was about right, and his condition became worse each day he stayed there. And there was no proper medical treatment. There were only rabbit pellet drops and the liquid from an orange juice like a bottle.
And how do you know that his unfortunate death had anything to do with the work at the dam site? How do you know? Who told you this?
In fact, he became sick at the work site, and his condition became deteriorated due to lack of proper medicine. He overworked at the work site as he had to break rock and carry the rock segments.
I'm trying to establish, Madam Civil Party, whether this is your conclusion or whether it is something that somebody told you because he or she knew. I hope you can understand the difference. But did anybody tell you what the reason was for the unfortunate death of this young man?
Nobody told me. I saw it with my own eyes. And as I said, he lived about only 6 doors from my house in the village.
You saw him and, on your day off, on the 10th day that you went to the village. Is that what you're saying?
Once the work site was closed, that is in June, I returned to the village, and that's when he died.
And do you remember how many days had passed since the finishing of the work and you seeing the man in his house?
I have already told you that it was about a fortnight after I returned from the work site.
So should I then understand that he fell sick, this young man, on the very last day of the work of your village at the work site?
Yes. In fact, he was ill, but he still continued working at the work site, and the continue became worse. And when the work site closed, he returned home, and about a fortnight later, he died.
Thank you, Madam Civil Party. Now I would like to ask you some questions about children from your village who you said also worked at the work site. Do you remember the names of these children?
I do. There were Karong and Karan, the younger sibling. They were both siblings. And there was another one, Tot, who was skinny and tall. As for the rest, I cannot recall their names.
Were these children accompanying their parents, who also worked at the dam?
No. They were assigned to be in the second mobile unit to work at the dam work site, and some children had their parents stay in the village.
And was one of their jobs to collect cow dung?
No, they were carrying earth like we did.
And how is it that you know their age at the time?
The children were around 9 years old, and the oldest were around 13 years old, or maybe even 12.
Who was it that selected these 2 or 3 children to work? Was that Anne?
No, it was not Anne, it was the village chief.
ប្រធានភូមិត្មង
It was the village chief who appointed them.
We heard one of the other 3 witnesses that we heard testifying this week and last week was also a village chief, and he gave testimony to the effect that only people with strength who could work at the dam were selected. Do you remember any discussion at the time as to why these 2 or 3 children were selected to work at the dam?
I cannot say about what happened in other villages. However, I know that in my village, children were assigned to carry dirt at the dam work site in the second mobile unit.
Do you remember the name of your village chief?
All was my village chief. However, he passed away. And All was a tall man. I think he was about 1.8 meter high, or tall rather.
Madam Civil Party, do you know if there is anybody who belonged to the group of 80 people from your village who is still alive today?
Are you referring to the old people or the new people?
Anybody within the group of 80 people that worked? Either one. People from either one group.
There is Moon Sak, and his partner, myself and my husband, and another person named Ree, who lived in Kampong Thom with the partner. And there is another one by the name of Mom and her younger sibling, and another one named Savun, who worked there for a while and then was reassigned to work in the village.
ភូមិខ្ញុំរស់បាន
There are about only 8 or 9 new people who survived amongst those 30 to 40 families who were assigned to live in my village. And as I said, there was a family of a woman by the name of Ree with her children. There are 6 more people in my family, Munsat's family, and my family, and the rest all died.
Thank you, Madam Civil Party. I'd like to take you back now again to the work site and the situation of sanitation. You were talking about many flies that also went into the soup. Do you recall that at any point of time when you were working there, people came to spray pesticides in order to chase those flies away?
It's difficult for me to respond to your question without having a laugh. As I said this morning, there was nothing at all in regards to the elimination of flies. This morning I already told you that the soup, although the amount was small, it was full of flies, and we had to pick them out of the bowl one by one. Everyone experienced the same thing. Despite flies in the soup, we had to eat and drink the soup in order to survive. At that point, sanitation was no longer a consideration. We had to think what we could eat in order to survive. And people experience a lot of dysentery. Sometimes they had to keep going in line into the forest to relieve themselves. And that's due to lack of sanitation.
Madam Civil Party, if you would be so kind just to say yes or no, did they come and spray pesticides near the kitchen, near the latrine, near your work site rather, where you were working? Did they or did they not? Yes or no, please.
No, it did not happen.
You were talking about soup being made and those flies in the soup. The people in the kitchen, were they cooking the soup?
The soup was prepared and cooked actually at the pagoda at Evidentiary, and after it was cooked, then 2 people would carry the soup to the work site for us to eat, and two other people would carry the rice. So it was cooked at our sleeping quarter at Evidentiary Pagoda.
But did the cooks in the kitchen make a fire to heat the soup again?
No.
Was there no cooking going on at all in the kitchen at your work site?
I already told you no, because once it's cooked at the pagoda, it was carried to the work site, and it was not warmed up again at the work site. We would just simply eat it.
Now another question, Madam Civil Party. You said earlier this morning that if he or she wanted, a base person could refuse to work at the dam. Can you give an example of such instance in which a base person refused to work at the dam work site?
Yes. It happened in front of me. Com was asked by the person whether Com go to the first January dam work site, and Com said no, I didn't want to go because I heard that a lot of people contracted malaria there. Then the village chief looked at me and another woman and asked whether we were willing to go to the work site. And of course I didn't dare to refuse, and I said yes.
And this person who said, no, I don't want to go because there's malaria, he stayed in the village?
No. Still, later on, that person was sent to the work site.
So also this base person ended up working together with the other base persons at the work site. Is that correct?
Yes.
And am I right when I say that all 80 people from your village, once at the work site, all did the same work?
Yes, we all did the same work.
So at the work site there was no difference in treatment between base people and new people. Is that correct?
It was that all people dared to sometimes challenge the instructions because they were all old people, but new people didn't dare to do that. They would just go to wherever they were pointed to. And they had just to bear with the situation in order to survive and not to be taken away and killed.
But in terms of work, in terms of quota, all 80 people in your group were treated exactly the same. Is that correct?
Answer: yes, we were treated. We had the same treatment, and new people has to work. For base people, they could evade work sometimes.
I understand that, but again, in terms of quota, in terms of working times, in terms of type of work, all 80 people in your group did the same thing. Is that correct?
Answer: yes, that is correct.
Maybe I didn't get your testimony earlier well, but did I hear you say that the division of new and old people within the group of 80 was about half-half? Did I understand that, or did I not understand that well?
Answer: there was no division. The portion of land was given to our group to work. For example, one group may receive 50 meters to work on, and some other villages would receive 100 meters to work on. And 1 cubic meter was sometimes given to a group of 1 man and 2 women to work on.
I apologize, maybe my question wasn't very clear. My question was, did I understand it correctly that the group of 80 people were 1/2 old people and 1/2 new people?
Answer: for my unit, new people had fewer number compared to base people.
Thank you, Madam Civil Party. Mr. President, I think I'm through almost all of my questions, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 more. Would it be a good moment to break so that I can round up my questions?
President, you can continue your line of questioning because it's not the time for break yet.
Okay, I will. Yes. Madam Civil Party, did you ever hear through the loudspeakers at the dam work site the 1st January dam being called a so-called hot battlefield?
Answer: yes, I heard of it. I heard it over the loudspeakers. The announcement was made every day, and it was depicted in the revolutionary songs and story. So what we were told over the loudspeaker was to actively engage in our work.
And did the people who spoke over the loudspeakers explain to the workers why the 1st January dam site was a hot battlefield?
Answer. That site was a hot battlefield because when the work was very active at that place, some people were taken away. That is why that dam site was named Hot Battlefield.
Have you yourself also at one point in time worked at the so-called 6th January dam?
Answer no.
Do you know or remember whether before you and the other members from your village started working at the dam, there had been a drought in Cambodia, and because of the drought there was food shortage? Had you heard of that before?
Answer. It appears not. I have never heard of it. In Pol Pot time, there was plenty of water, no drought in that period. When it came to June or July, there was a rain and we had water to do the farming. I do not know about other location and areas. As for Barai district, there was plenty of water.
Do you know whether before you started working at the dam site you had heard there was food shortage because of the war that had preceding the liberation in April 75?
Witness, could you repeat your question?
Had you ever heard that before you started working at the dam site that there was food shortage in your area because of the war that had ended in April 75?
Answer. You mean food shortage in Pol Pot time? I heard of it. People were saying that militiamen and soldiers sacrificed their life to liberate new people. Food supplies were used to give to those who were in the front line. For this reason, there was a short of food for people in the rear line. Actually, no one wanted to leave their home. I mean, people in towns, they did not want to leave their homes.
Was there a food shortage in your village where you lived?
Answer. There was food shortage in my village. We did not have enough food to eat during rainy season. we could only have gruel with morning glory, and the gruel was sometimes watery. From August, September, October, and November, most female workers in my village had no menstrual cycle because they did not have enough food to eat. They received only a watery gruel. When there was a good harvest, we would have a rice to eat. And as I said, when there was no good harvest, there was no rice, we received only a gruel, watery gruel to eat. Everyone was weak, and we were getting weaker and weaker. New people, they had their own plot of land to grow vegetation, and as for new people, we had nothing.
My last question, Madam Civil Party, did they tell you, the workers at the 1st January dam site, that the purpose of building this dam was to make sure that there would be enough water for the rice farmers, so that there would not be any more shortages because of the weather situation, and that was the purpose of everybody working together at this dam?
Answer: what was the cause of food shortage? After the harvest, rice was transported out. Cook would go to fetch the food ration from Sangkat. Cook went to collect the husk rice and brought to the place, and after that he has to unhusk the rice for cooking. I saw that rice was transported out of my place. There was a warehouse in a Songkat. I do not know how large it was. In the mornings, there was announcement that one particular individual would go and collect food ration or rice. That is the routine practice, President. Madam Civil Party, you seem not to respond to the question put by Council. Please listen to the question carefully and give your right response. Council, please repeat your question so that you can get the right response from Civil Party.
I withdraw my question, Mr. President. Thank you.
President, thank you. It is now time for break. The chamber will take break from now until 3 p.m. Court officer, please find a proper place for this witness and the support staff of TBO during the break time, and please invite them back into the courtroom at 3 p.m. The court is now in recess.